Hello and welcome to Talking Shit About, where we need no introduction, no visas or carte blanche in human reproduction, because we're here for what we want. And each month we talk about something we hate, something we love but got some beef with. Oh, and by the way, I'm Elizabeth, aka Kill Elizabeth. And this month we're talking about Misfits and Glenn Danzig. The word of the episode is fun. It's a fun interview, and the band is fun, which is the main takeaway. But there's more to it than that. So I hope you enjoy, and let's talk some shit. Welcome, everybody, to episode 24 of Talking Shit About. I'm here with my friend Traci to talk shit about the Misfits. And I'm so excited. Traci's put a lot of work into it, which I'm super grateful for. So, Traci, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, just kind of who you are. I know you do art, so if you want to talk about that, and then kind of your relationship to music.
My name's Traci. I live in Missoula, Montana. I am going to graduate in the fine arts program next year. I have a focus in photography and printmaking and digital art, which I'm trying to learn, and it's an adventure. My relationship with music has really changed. I'm an older internet user, so I was definitely around for Internet 1.0. I really started expanding my tastes in the early days of live journal rating communities, which are completely cringe now, but we thought we were super fucking cool back in the day. So it was a lot of who can out obscure the other person, who knows more metal, who knows more Japanese noise jazz. Like it was really challenging to try to keep up with some of that stuff, and it's just never really stopped. I just am always listening to new and different things. So probably 2 years ago, maybe more, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it's been a while, a friend and I started a challenge where we were that started with a t-shirt from a studio out of Spain that said, "You can only trust yourself in the first six Black Sabbath albums." And I had said, I've never listened. I've never listened to Black Sabbath. I've never actually sat down and really paid attention to what's happening. And I realized, I think we did the first eight, actually. We did up to the first one with Ronnie James Dio. And I realized that there was a lot of music that was important that I knew about, but I had never heard. So I didn't understand why it was important. I didn't understand, why Black Sabbath is the foundation of, metal and doom and all of the variety of spin-offs that exist, and like, how it informs stoner music and how it informs pop music. So it started as this project that's definitely kind of an OCD autistic thing. I think that I need to be a completionist. I need to hear everything this band has done. So I've done Bruce Springsteen, Paul Simon, Iron Maiden. Never done Metallica because who wants to do that? Yeah, like that just sounds horrible. But it's been a really informative way of listening to music because I could hear different production and different values and how the band progresses and makes themselves better. So for whatever reason, and I don't even know what started the Misfits thing. I'm pretty sure it was in a video somewhere. And I was like, I've never actually heard more than like two Misfits songs. I wonder what the people are compelled to create an entire identity out of this band. So did the Misfits, which then I had to do Danzig. I didn't do Soen, Sam Hain, however the hell you're supposed to say it. Yeah, Danzig's an asshole. So there you go.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So, do you remember like hearing those first few Misfit songs at the time, or was it just kind of something that you heard and didn't really like think about?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, they were around, and everybody, who's a music nerd or a music snob knows who the Misfits are. Like, we know. Everybody knows Mother. Everybody knows Where Eagles Dare. Everybody knows Die Die My Darling. Like, it's just one of those things that always exists, especially in the punk rock or hardcore scene. It just always is hanging there as one of these, oh, I was really inspired by the Misfits. And I haven't really been able to figure out why, but I guess we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so you recently went through and listened to that whole discography. How was that experience?
Of the Misfits, it was a lot. I have all these notes. I have pages and pages of notes over here,
Uh,
and the Misfits. Yeah, my note keeping is intense. What struck me most about the Misfits is it was very shock value. There wasn't really any tangible message, and I have not listened to Black Flag very much, so but it is explicitly apolitical, which we'll get into why that's important when we get to Danzig, or even the Misfits. So, you could look at, Black Flag or Fugazi or any of those early hardcore bands, whether they be, fascist right or leftist left. And I say leftist left because not, just Democrats. And there's a message that is there. And the Misfits just kind of exist to be drunk party songs. Like there was never a point to what they were saying. So I found myself listening to it going, this is cool, but I'm literally never going to go back to this. I'm never going to go back and listen to this again for any reason.
yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I had never thought about that. Yeah. So we'll start off on a good note. So, were there any albums or songs that you like really clicked with?
um, yeah, I was just looking back through my posts here, and there were a lot of highlights, and like I really like Where Eagles Dare. Like, who doesn't like that? Like, that's one of the greatest songs ever. Miss Earth AD was really good, and Static Age, which I believe was their first album, was really good. And kind of linking back to the last question, I think a lot of people who are music snobs have certain moments in their teenage years that inform later listening. So a lot of this is like, if I was 15, I would have been all over this shit. If I had been in this genre instead of goth, The Cure, Depeche Mode, and all that, like this would have been my fucking jam. So there is that level to the Misfits that is very salient for teenage angst without being Black Flag. Like Black Flag kind of goes above that party to like really kind of depressive sad boy hours, and never got sad boy ever from the Misfits, which was really interesting. Also, he really loves horror movies, like to a fault.
So, do you know much about I know you did a bunch of research, which bless you for doing that. Um, what do you know about like the band itself? And I'm sure we'll get into Danzig too at some point.
Yeah, they just kind of converged out of the East Coast hardcore scene, and I think them being in New Jersey sets them apart from other hardcore acts that we maybe have more respect for, whether they be out of New York or Washington, D.C., or I guess you could say Boston. So there's like a really specific sound that was coming out of that East Coast hardcore scene. But from everything I read, like they just went through band members like crazy. They couldn't keep anybody. Somebody was drunk, or somebody wouldn't show up, or somebody got in a fight. Like, and there's like these stories about the Damned. Is it Danny Filth that's from the Damned? Who's the guy from the Damned? Anyway, they played a show from with the Damned and in the US, and the Damned jokingly was like, "Oh yeah, you should come play with us in London." And they took them seriously. So they all showed up to London, and the Damned was like, "Why are you here?" So, which, kind of, I'm sure, set the tone for later Danzig releases. And it's difficult to tell why the band kind of collapsed, but everything seems to point to Danzig being a control freak. So, like, really wanting to just, everything is my way or no way. And of course, the Misfits carried on with Doyle, who I believe turned out to be like a right wing shitbag. Pretty sure he was like a Proud Boys supporter and stuff.
Lovely.
Yeah, yeah. Quite tragic. Although unsurprising, right? Like, that's very unsurprising.
Yeah.
I think you can look at a lot of those punk rock bands from that day and be like, wow, Jello Biafra, who literally did Nazi punks fuck off, turned into a right wing libertarian shitbag. Like, they all seem to have this really bizarre trajectory out of that late 70s, early 80s punk rock into growing up, which is weird. I think even maybe Henry Rollins at some point has that, kind of teeters on that edge of libertarian. So,
yeah. So, what can you tell me about Danzig? All I know about him is that he's an asshole, and then I can picture his hair in my head.
right.
And hear his voice, obviously.
Right. So it depends, I guess, what era of Danzig you're talking about. I don't know. The man, the Danzig, the man. I had a really hard time with this. My husband's sitting here in the living room with me, but he won't care. I had a really difficult time with this because as I was watching, especially his earlier videos, I realized that I have some internet friends. We have this inside joke about sexual imprints. That I have this big sexual imprint of that body style, of that kind of meathead, right? I mean, not like he's not like, power lift. I mean, he could be a power lifter. I don't know, but he's not like that. He's a meathead. Like, you can look at the guy and be like, oh yeah, you never miss arm day. Like, it's so it was really kind of difficult for me to like learn about him and be like, oh, you're just a horrible person. So after post Danzig, a lot of this is like poorly scrapped together. And I had read this really interesting series of articles. It was 4 or 5 articles long that was talking about Danzig becoming an internet meme and being Danzig before the internet and then being Danzig after the internet, and how he's kind of like this perfect target. He's created this brooding, super serious, I don't want to say hyper masculine because I don't think it's hyper masculine, but just this very serious person who never breaks the plane, right? He's just always like kind of like this Conan archetype, I guess. Like, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So when he, like the first one, like with the kitty litter, like that was a huge internet meme that, people were making fake parody ads and fake Danzig songs about, oh, I got something to say, I bought kitty litter today. I mean, it was great. Like, and then there was the thing about the bricks, which I didn't even know about, and apparently he was living somewhere in Los Angeles and had this pile of bricks. It was a huge pile of bricks that he wouldn't take care of, and then the homeowners in the area were like, hey, you're lowering our property value. So it was out there long enough for people to be like, we can't sell our fucking house because of this pile of bricks. So there's this story that he got a big trash can. What is it called?
Like a dumpster?
Dumpster. Thank you. So he rented this dumpster and he was standing outside in his yard. I'm putting my bricks in the dumpsters, motherfuckers. Do you see me, bitches? I'm throwing my bricks. And he's just like chucking bricks into this dumpster. Like, that is such a diva tantrum, right? Like, it's so unpunk rock. I can't even. So, and really, that's my biggest criticism of Danzig is he's so self-serious that it's impossible to know if he's being honest, you know?
Yeah. It's like he's got a persona, but he's not breaking it.
Right.
Kind of.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ever. Because I was watching some interviews on MTV, and this was one of the first ones I watched, and it was so deeply uncomfortable. It was in 1995 on MTV's Super Rock show, and he was there with this woman. Her name is Jackie Ferry, and very 90s alt girl, right? Like it just, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly the kind of person I'm talking about. And he kept like schmoozing her and like, doing like that weird, you know, kind of grin, that guys do when they're schmoozing you.
Mhm.
And like he keeps touching her and he keeps getting closer to her and she's backing further and further away. And I'm like, this is at one point she's literally in the corner when the
Oh.
camera cuts and then they're back out in the middle of the room. And I was like, contextually, I understand this, but this is hard to watch. Like, this man was a creep. Like,
Mhm.
showing off his muscles. He's wearing like his latex vinyl shirt or whatever, and he's like showing off his abs. And I was like, dude, creepy, creep. So that was a lot. That was like really rambly. Anyway.
No, no, perfect.
And oh yeah, and I have this note here. In that same video with Jackie Ferry, and this was when I started to get mad at Danzig, when I was like, you're full of shit. Because he was comparing himself and the Misfits to other critically acclaimed artists like Bauhaus, Minor Threat, Black Flag, and Velvet fucking Underground. And I
Yeah,
was like,
right.
come on, nothing you did is as important as Bauhaus and Velvet Underground. Okay, I'll give you Black Flag, whatever. Like contemporary equals fine, but Minor Threat, fine. Like give you that one too. But Black Flag, I'm sorry, Velvet Underground and Bauhaus, no,
No.
no.
That's a different plane. Yeah.
Completely. So I had
Yeah.
made a post on somewhere on Facebook, like, I can't wait to find the interview where he says he listens to all of Metal Machine music, because if you know Velvet Underground, then you know Lou Reed, right? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, when I picture Velvet Underground, I imagine myself like freshman year of high school sitting in my bedroom on the bed. And this is before I smoked weed, despite what my mom thought. But I get why she thought that, because I would sit there in my room with the black light on, listening to Velvet Underground, Venus and Furs, looking at my black light posters with incense burning, and my brain reeling and
Right.
coming up with these beautiful images. And then when I think of the Misfits, I just think of myself kind of in my car, kind of half pissed off. I ain't no goddamn son of a bitch.
Right.
And it's a totally different level of connection. And that being said, I did see the Misfits live. It was with Jerry only. It was probably, yeah, 2009. And it was the same night as Homecoming. And my mom, bless her, she was super into it. We like took pictures and stuff with me and my boyfriend. I got my colored hair and we're all decked out and our like studded belts and all that shit. And it was like one of the best nights of my life. It was like the mosh pit was super respectful. I was like this little tiny girl and they, didn't throw me around too much. And yeah, the energy was just super fun. But also, I'm sure there would be people that are like, "Oh, well, Danzig, it's not like the real Misfits." Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I didn't
Right.
experience that, which is nice. But yeah, and it was fun. But that's kind of like the extent of it. Like you were saying,
So
like I don't. Yeah.
like so you bring up a really good point where you have, in your case, you have a connection with the art, the performance, the music of Velvet Underground, but you have memories that are attached to Misfits, which I think is a really important distinction. Like, I don't have any, to piggyback off your punk rock story. The first real punk rock show I went to was Youth of Today. I can't remember who they were playing with. It may have been 7 Seconds. This was like 1997. Like we're talking years ago. And and that was the first time I had actually ever seen like real Nazis too. And like
Hmm.
my friend was like, no, we got to have the purple laces in our boots so they know we aren't white supremacists. Like, and I had gotten sucked into the pit, and I was getting my ass kicked out there. And one of my most vivid memories was a full skinhead Nazi with white braces and everything, scooping me up off of the floor, taking me back out into the crowd and being like, "Are you okay? You okay? All right." And then going back in. Like, it was a very surreal moment when I look back on that, about the connection of music. But I couldn't tell you anything that youth of today actually did, because I wasn't connecting to the music. I was connecting to the memory. I was connecting to the experience that the music happened to be going along with, which is something that many conversations on the internet have to do with: is the music really good, or is it just your nostalgia talking? Let's process that and talk about, why do you still listen to Sugar Ray or All Star or whatever, right? I mean, there's plenty of bad music that we still love because there's something in our brain attached to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm gonna go on an aside here. I just thought of All Star. I have these friends that were our brothers, and one of them was telling me that when Smash Mouth All Star came out, his brother would get so fucking hyped and worked up that he would start beating the shit out of his little brother.
Yes.
And so it
Oh,
got
wait,
to the
no.
point where the parents were like, "You can't listen to Smash Mouth anymore."
Hell
Um,
no.
yeah, it's just like, oh shit. It's so funny, like the music that gets you like so hyped up and emotional when you're like little, and then now in hindsight, like, I mean, the Misfits, I still like. I've been on a kick. It was because of your Facebook post that I was like, oh yeah, I'll listen to like, Collection One or whatever.
Right?
Um, yeah, but it's so like, it's just fun. There's
It
not
is fun.
like anything deeper to it.
Nothing.
Nope.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Well, and that was, back to the reason. So Danzig, one of the biggest reasons why, aside from his endless memeable qualities, is he's really critical of woke culture,
Mm.
which is what I was saying about that apolitical thing earlier. That, well, we just couldn't make songs like Die Die My Darling anymore. We'd get canceled. And it's like, do you really think your viewers are so stupid, or your listeners are so stupid, that they can't figure out you're not being real? You're not actually going to go kill babies, right? Like, give your listeners some credit and stop shitting on them, because you're really making it clear what you think about who is purchasing your music, which is you know an interesting bent that I wasn't anticipating when I went into this. That I was like, wow, you really do think that people who listen to your music are dumb, like that millennials, that Gen Z are idiots and they can't differentiate between reality and satire. Have you listened to Little Nas X ever? Like, have you listened to anything in the last 2 years of pop music to know that still a theme? Like, they're still shit posting IRL. So
Yeah, there's so much music I listen to and I'm like, oh, I don't like that word, or like, ooh, that's kind of cringe in hindsight. But oh fuck, where was I going with this? God shit, fuck. I was going somewhere with that specific. Maybe
PC
it'll come back.
culture, apolitical punk rock.
Oh, right. So yeah, I'm like, sometimes I'm able to differentiate the music from the artist. The Misfits, like, there's some lyrics I'm not fond of in hindsight, but I can still like recognize it or make up my own lyrics. But then you have artists like fucking Marilyn Manson
Oh
that,
yeah.
they sang about all of that shit, and everyone's like, oh, well, it's just, performance. But then it turns out he's a total piece of shit. So, like, there's this line of like where I've learned to just, anytime I hear music, like, what is the one specific Misfits song that I'm thinking of? It's about killing babies and raping women.
I
What the
think
fuck
it's
is the name of
is
that
that Die
song?
Die My Darling?
No, and it was actually one of my favorite songs.
Is it
Of course,
Last
I can't remember
Caress?
the name.
Is it Last Caress?
Last Crest. Yep. So it's like I hear that now, and I'm like, God, I don't want to. I just assume that like every man that sings some kind of lyrics about that is probably an asshole, is kind of my thing. But I don't know, I just kind of wait for it to come out before I make that judgment. But like I just
Yeah.
kind of waiting for it, you know? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Especially after the whole Marilyn Manson thing. And I was older when, I mean, I was 20 or 21 when the first Marilyn Manson album came out. So, and the first Marilyn Manson album is still, I don't want to say it's really good, but it has its moments where you were like, you're doing something here. You're doing something different that wasn't being done before. So, in one of the interviews, actually, I can't remember which one it was. It may have been the one with Jackie Ferry. It was the one with Jackie Ferry. And he's talking about how his favorite bands are, this blows my mind. Marilyn Manson, Korn, and PJ Harvey.
Huh.
Like how do you get from Korn and Marilyn Manson to PJ Harvey? I don't.
Yeah,
Anyway,
PJ Harvey's great.
yeah, which brought up another thing in my brain. Like as I'm listening to Danzig, the music Danzig, and I made a Facebook comment about this somewhere, that I can go back to those first couple Korn albums and see that, and I am not defending Korn, but see that they were really pushing what could and couldn't be done in music, piggybacking off of Limp Bizkit and what Limp Bizkit had pushed. And then Korn's like, oh yeah, we're going to turn it up to 11. And they were really doing creative things that had never been done before. So it's kind of one of those things, I'm listening to Danzig going, but this other band did it better. This other band took what you did and did it better. So it's difficult to find iconic value like you would in, say, a Black Sabbath or something. So
Yeah. So what albums and songs kind of stood out to you as like the worst? Was there kind of like, was it one of those things where they start out strong and then kind of dive as band members change and everything? Or did you find that it was kind of scattered throughout?
it was really scattered throughout. And when I was reading, I think it was the Wikipedia page, because that's what we read now. It was a lot of, well, this song didn't make it on that album, so they tacked it onto this album. And this got recorded at this session, but it didn't make it to the cut, so it got tacked on to the collection. So one thing, and I didn't listen to the collections, the ones everybody knows with the Scarlet Ghost on the front. I didn't actually listen to those because I wanted to hear the other studio music. But it's really unfortunate that it's one of those bands, kind of like the Eagles. You don't actually need to listen to the Eagles. You just need to listen to the Eagles' greatest hits, right? Please don't listen to that either. It's all trash. But I said what I said. My husband's looking at me. So it's very similar to the Misfits. Like you don't actually need to listen to the albums. You just need to listen to the greatest hits collection, because that's where the strongest songs are going to be. That's why it exists. So
Unlike the Velvet Underground or
right.
PJ
Or Van
Harvey.
Morrison. Like, could you ever put together a Van Morrison greatest hits? Like, no. Like, you have to hear the whole album. You have to experience all of Astral Works or Moondance or whatever. So I didn't get that from the Misfits, which is sometimes a telling sign.
Yeah, in my old car, I had just a CD player, and so when it got to the point where when I played the Misfits, it didn't show the song titles; it just showed the number. Be like, oh, skip to track 3, skip to track
Right.
6, and
Right.
yeah. The Velvet Underground, I didn't do that. It's like I gotta listen to the
Right.
whole thing. I love albums
And
with continuity. That's like my jam.
yeah, and one of the most, and this is completely unrelated to anything, but one of the most interesting, surprising discographies I ever did was REM. And REM was consistent throughout their whole career. Now their sound changed, the music changed. They certainly kept abreast of, the current cultural zeitgeists, but every album was consistently good. And I was really quite shocked to discover that even their misses weren't misses. They were still really solid output. So unfortunately, when I look at something like that and compare it to something like the Misfits or the Glenn Danzigs, you're not even in the same ballpark. Even though you're at the same time, you're in the same era, you're putting out music in the same places, you're not the same. You'll never be Michael Stipe.
Yeah. So you mentioned Black Flag a few times, but do you think there are artists, specifically I'm thinking of punk, that do, I don't want to say better than the Misfits, but have more, I guess, artistic integrity or values or something that's less than
I
service level?
I actually know very little about punk from the 80s. Most of my context for punk is post 90s. So like, the Green Day explosion. Like I saw Green Day play for $5, like before they were Green Day, right? So I would, if I was to, oh fuck, I saw Fear play too. I saw Fear play at CU Boulder. Like some of the bands that I got to see that I had no idea who they were really just blows my mind, that I was like, I got to see Lee Ving play with Fear and I had no idea what I was doing. My brain always goes to artists like Black Flag or Bad Religion, or but I like intellectually stimulating music. I like music that makes me think, but I'm also a very politically engaged and civically engaged person on a lot of levels. So I don't typically go for music that's just fun.
Yeah. Do you listen to Faith No More at all?
Oh yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah, Faith No More. I just, yeah, it's been kind of coming in and out of my brain as we're talking, which I don't, Faith No More is so all over the place. Like, it's hard for me to,
Yeah,
like, pin them a genre. But Mike Patton, holy shit, what a, he has, like, the largest, if not, like, the second largest vocal range, like, in the world.
really
He's,
interesting.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, he's pretty talented. But yeah, those albums, there's just so many different things. Yeah, I feel like there's so many other bands that, I mean, obviously I still listen to the Misfits, like the songs that I like, but yeah, I feel like there are so many bands that you can invest more in and get more out of versus just like, oh, this song is fun.
I mean, Mike Patton is a perfect example. You got Faith No More, which is stupid, hyper masculine funk metal. Like I mean, I would. It's not all of that, but it's kind of in the same league as like Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? Like it exists in this particular space of the late '80s, early '90s that had a lot of that funky stuff. And then you can go to Phantomas and his own works and be like, what? This is nothing like Faith No More. Like it's so
Yeah.
he's not afraid to really go there and fuck up, which I
Hmm.
think is like really important. Like he will fuck up and be like, well, try it again.
Hmm.
I don't think you could ever listen to everything Mike Patton ever did. Like I think you would run out of time before you managed to find it all.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Bungle is,
Oh yeah,
it's one of
Mr.
those
Bungle.
things, another, like those albums, there's definitely a few where I'll like, oh, we skipped that one, except for California, which a lot of people don't like that album, but I like it a lot. Maybe we should do a Faith No More episode, but it'd just be fangirling. So I wanted to go back to the kitty litter thing because you mentioned it. Do you have context for that?
I mean, the context is he literally was just at the grocery store
Just
and a
buying cat litter?
fan just by, yeah, I mean, like in the photo, you've never seen it. It's
No.
hysterical. It's just a photo of like, he must be off season because he's kind of got a little pudge around his waist. And he's just like got groceries and kitty litter. And he's just walking through the parking lot. And he's all brooding, like, Glenn Danzig. It must just be his resting bitch face. I don't know. Like, but and in the articles, they were like really like using a social science lens to pick apart why Glenn Danzig memes are so funny, because he's this icon of, I don't know, whatever, punk rock. Like he's got this iconic image, and then he's just a normal dude buying kitty litter. And it's
Yes.
kind of this crashing down to earth moment that you're like, wow, you are just like us. You're not
Yeah.
that far away.
But he still like acts like he's not. Whereas like
Right.
you have like celebrities like Snoop Dogg or like Paris Hilton where they have these personas, but they can take them off and you're like, wow, this person's
Right.
incredibly intelligent and
Right.
oh,
Paris Hilton is
just
a
like us.
really good example.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched some Paris Hilton documentaries that I'm like, holy shit, you really screwed yourself by putting on that image of dumb blonde, but you made a shit ton of money. So I have that again, completely off topic. I have that same internal discussion over Kim Kardashian too. Like,
Hmm.
is she really smart? Is she just that good at playing this game that she's, I mean, Paris Hilton objectively has a job or an education. Like, she objectively does something somewhere to make her money. What does Kim Kardashian do? Is it smart or is it lucky? I haven't been able to. She ain't buying kitty litter, I'll tell you that much. She has people to do that for her.
Yeah. Yeah, now I'm gonna look up the actually I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna look up the kitty litter. Um did I already ask you if there was any albums or songs that were especially shitty?
Of the Misfits, oh, there was
Yeah.
plenty that was especially shitty. I let's see, especially shitty. Let's see.
He's just bagging cat litter like the rest of us.
It's the most normal photo in existence, isn't it?
Yeah. Uh yeah, I don't know what I was
um,
expecting, but that looks just looks like him carrying I got something to say. I fed my kitty today.
it's amazing. That was an incredible thing when it happened. I don't know if there's any that I of the Misfits that I particularly hated. It
Mhm.
like we were saying earlier. That's let's see. I hated Blood Feast on Earth AD. I said there's some vocals in this mix that make me keep looking over my shoulder because I think somebody's standing behind me. um, so there was something in there that was like sitting in the back of the mix that made me think I was in there, or somebody was in the room with me. Oh, when I did Die Die My Darling, I commented and said, take a shot every time Danzig says die. You're dead now. You didn't make it halfway through the song. I'm sorry. I think probably Walk Among Us was likely the weakest overall. I think in large part because I have this theory that there's like metal bands and punk rock bands from like the 80s to the 90s that sound better on cassette tape. Like they sound better with that tinny bad noise that you get from some of that. And especially on Walk Among Us, one of the first things I said was, "Oh my God, we have actual, honest to God production." But I still think it was recorded in a basement. So because of the production value went up, somehow that lessened the fun of what was going on in the music.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of bands too are like you got to see them live. Like there's just something
Right.
different about it and like yeah, I feel like the Misfits is probably one of those bands. Like I said, I still have fun when I listen to some of the songs, but to an extent.
Yeah, you're not going to sit down and listen to 8 hours of it,
Yeah.
please.
No more.
Yeah, I had to give up after Danzig, like halfway through Danzig 4. I was like, I can't, I fucking can't. I can't do this anymore because I'm starting to hurt people's feelings by shitting all over these albums that they have deep love for in their nostalgic brains. So,
I haven't listened to any of Danzig's like own stuff. How does it compare to the Misfits?
how does it compare to the Misfits? Danzig should have stopped after Danzig 2. And I believe he went to like 7 or 8.
Mm.
So, having the most recent memory of Danzig, because that was what I listened to all day yesterday, it definitely is more metal. Like, I don't want to say it's not thrash, but there was a crossover in the early 90s, late 80s, where punk rock started being infused into heavy metal. And I think that was likely a response to all the cock rock, the which was, and I would defend this statement. I would say that, you know, the Motley Crues and the Poisons were glam punk rock. Like they still had some of that musical aptitude that exists in a lot of their contemporary punk rock people. But Danzig, when did the first album come out? His music, I think, served a different market, and I'm just going to say young men, because I don't think it was ever really aimed marketed to women, although it was for women as well. But I think it was hitting a different the first Danzig album was in 1988. So it was trying to hit a different market of young men. And I can use my husband as that example, you know, the young men that were listening to Metallica and Anthrax and Accept and, you know, the heavier, because new wave of British heavy metal was kind of fading out in favor of American butt rock. So I think Danzig, especially having his first album produced by Rick fucking Rubin, which is an astonishing feat. Like that's kind of really blew my mind that I was like, Rick Rubin produced like your first 5 albums. That's really wild. So it was definitely aiming at a different demographic than what else was currently out there. You know, because gosh, 88, what you had Sammy Hagar was in Van Halen about that time. So a lot of the greats were starting to fall off and become very safe and sanitary for radio. So I think Danzig kind of fit that spot really neatly for what they wanted. It's all capitalism, man.
Love it. This is kind of
Can't have a conversation without talking about why it became marketable, but
yeah, I feel like we have this sort of alternate experience where you got to see all of these bands, or at least like listen to them, like Green Day I'm thinking of, as they were still like
authentic.
Whereas like about the time where I started listening to these bands, they were like, you know, sort of, and like I hate using mainstream, but like they were all established and burning out. Like I saw Marcy Playground 2011, and I love Marcy Playground, but it was like one of the most depressing shows I've ever been to. It was just all these like, you know, kind of middle-aged like beer gut men in this like smoothie shop, and I don't know, an audience of 10 to 20 people, and asking all the women to come up on stage to sing Sex and Candy. I didn't.
Ew.
And it was just like 3 women, and like none of them could sing, and it was just like super awkward. So that's kind of been like my experience with those bands. So yeah, no, I think that's like interesting. Although I'm sure there's bands that I've seen that are like blowing up. I guess Phoebe Bridgers, like I started listening to her a while ago, but then I saw her right as she was kind of starting to get up there, which is like super cool.
I think the last band that I saw was Red Fang, because we saw Red Fang at Total Fest in 2000. When was my son born? Because I was pregnant. Absolutely wild to go see that pregnant. I can't remember which Total Fest it was. 2011, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was their second album, which was just starting to blow up. And I was so impressed that they still continually, even after Total Fest ended, they still kept coming back to Missoula because of the record label that is gone.
Oh,
what was the record label?
it's driving me nuts, and I can't even remember the guy who ran it, but I know it.
I mean, it's so funny because we'll watch videos, and in almost every video they have, there's a Montana plate. Like somewhere in there's some reference to Montana, and it's so cool that like that's the only, not Sargent House. Who put that out first? Was it Sargent House? No. Anyway, yeah, I can't think of it either. And now and this has been a long running conversation between me and like everybody in existence is, will we ever have bands like Black Flag or the Misfits with the way we consume music now? Like, is there even room to have that? Because everybody can get it. You don't have to mail off at the back of a comic book magazine to get the cassette tape. You can log on to YouTube or Bandcamp and listen to everything immediately. So I think that's much to the detriment of artists like Danzig, which I think we're seeing a resurgence of, because they won't fucking stop touring and like stop touring. We get it. It's a cash grab now. Like you're capitalizing off of us, me and you know, who have money, who are going to go see this band because we hope they play Misfits. And we're willing to pay $125. I'm not, you're not, but
Me neither.
our demographic. Right. Right.
Yeah, just for nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any other like Danzig stories or anything? Anything you came up or those...
It's been interesting as I got like into the interviews. Oh, there was this one about Fun Fest in Austin that I wish I could find the Twitter post, but apparently it's been deleted. It was like from 2011 or something. That they were supposed to play Fun Fest in Austin, and he was having trouble or didn't feel well, and they were slated to go on at 8, but curfew was at 10, and they didn't come on stage. So it was Danzig, Soen, and the Misfits were all on the same card, and they didn't come on until 8:45, and they only played 2 Misfit songs. And rather than being like, I gotta, you know, my throat was sore or whatever, he was like, it's the venue's fault, and like was literally charged with inciting a riot because he got this whole crowd in a fury, because that's apparently what punk rockers do, known for rioting. And then like it came out like later, like he was requesting so specific French onion soup and a Wendy's chicken sandwich,
I
and he
fucking hate
wasn't going to
writers.
go on and he wasn't going to go on stage until he had this. So there was like this tweet, because I think Slayer was on the same bill, or they were supposed to play with them like in a few days or something. So Slayer tweeted, had a really great show, got everything we wanted out of it. And the picture was 2 cans of Campbell's French onion soup. I was like, fucking Slayer, man. Fucking Slayer.
Slade.
So it's like his diva-ness and has really become apparent in recent years. And really my biggest criticism of Danzig, I even made a Facebook comment. I said, if there's anything I've learned in the last 2 days, Danzig takes himself very seriously, and we should not.
Yes.
But then I also, my friend that I was talking to, he was like, all of the bullshit and music aside, is Danzig somebody you think you could hang out with? And I was like, probably. Like, I doubt he's like that all the time. I have a picture in here from, I'll send you the link later. The name of the article is Glenn Danzig, the Emperor of Assholism. And the comment I quoted was, my loathing of Glenn Danzig knows no bounds. He's a dweeby, power-mad troll who spends his life overcompensating for the fact that he is no taller than a fire hydrant and just as intelligent.
Oh, fuck.
And then there's a picture of him in the article where he's shirtless in front of like the craft table, and he's handing out slices of dirt cake with gummy worms on them. Yeah, it's I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna show you this picture. Oh, you disabled it.
Oh.
I will send you the link, because it is one of the most bizarre things. So he has to be a normal guy. He's just really pretentious and takes himself so seriously in his music that it's difficult to parse that out. And back on the woke thing, we were talking about apolitical punk rock is a moment of political punk rock. You can't be apolitical. Being apolitical is a political stance, especially when you're coming out of, you know, the Sex Pistols and all of that, apolitical was rebellion. I don't care about your system, either side. I don't care about, you know, bombing Iraq or starving children in Africa. Like whatever was coming out of the 80s, apolitical was the default position, whether you fell on the fascist right or the leftist left. You were apolitical. And in 2023, did I already say this? I feel like I already said this. In 2023, that doesn't work. You kind of you have to almost, so maybe he's right that his music wouldn't work, because you have to pick a side. You can't be, unless you're Ariana Grande, you can't be apolitical unless you're so big that politics, you know, Taylor Swift, or well, even Taylor Swift isn't apolitical. Lady Gaga isn't apolitical. Lil Nas isn't apolitical. Like they all have a political stance, and they've made that clear. So I think that gets really difficult for older artists like Danzig to still maintain that apolitical attitude when you're singing about, you know, devil worship and all of that. Like, dude, pick a side.
If you could pick 3 words to describe the Misfits, what would you choose?
Fun, rowdy, and drunk.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I had made a comment when I was listening to Danzig. I think it was on Danzig 2. And I had made a comment and I said, I figured it out. This is music you play on the jukebox that you're not paying attention to, but still makes you feel super cool. And that I think kind of encapsulates a lot of Danzig / Misfits, and in by and large a lot of that punk rock that was coming out in the early to mid 80s.
All right,
It
and
doesn't
then
actually mean anything.
yeah, what 3? And this is kind of, I'm just throwing this at you, so no pressure. But when you are looking for music, what are the kind of 3 words that you were 3 descriptors that you like in your music?
I listen to everything.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to, at this has changed as I've gotten older. I used to be able to work while, you know, listening to things like Rage Against the Machine or something. I can't anymore. I've turned into my mom. Um, but I like music that is inventive, engaging, aesthetic, and not aesthetic as in what the internet thinks aesthetic is, but like lately I've been listening to a lot of barber beats, which is a sub genre of vaporwave. I fully recognize how pretentious that is, but because I've been engaging in this very specific brand of plunderphonics. Do you know what plunderphonics is?
Mm-mm.
So plunderphonics is one of the best examples. Plunderphonics is everything is stolen, and there's one band that made it really big that the entire everything is sampled. The Avalanches and DJ Shadow all have albums that are entirely made out of samples from top to bottom. But within the deeper vaporwave barber beats, within that, it's all stolen. And they make it very clear. Like you can go to their Bandcamp and they'll be like, you can buy our entire discography for $3, or you can download it all here for free. So they're really pushing the limits of fair use with samples. But because of that, and because YouTube algorithms know me so well, it started dumping me into like these really obscure exotica, bossa nova, 60s and 70s jazz. So it started like sending me into these awesome Japanese jazz and Japanese city pop. And so I've been able to really kind of take this jumping off point and run with it and be like, some of this stuff will never be heard, and it's incredible. Like it's so awesome. And I've all through this project of doing discographies, and I spent a lot of time talking about that during Danzig, is I've learned to listen to the production, and I've learned, where do the vocals sit in the mix? Why are they dampening that drum? Why is there that hard pan on the guitar? Why did you layer the guitar 15 times? Like, so I've learned to start hearing those things like Rick Rubin. Like, you can hear Rick Rubin's iconic dampening of the drums in Danzig 2. And I even commented, why are the drums so flat? Why are they so quiet in here when on other tracks it's absolutely driving the whole thing? Like, the drums are the main engine of those songs, which I think are the most successful ones, where it's less about Danzig and more about the bass and the drum. And I think Rick Rubin like has a very particular style, especially in the late 80s and early 90s, that is instantly recognizable. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Johnny Cash, Danzig, Beastie Boys, all those bands that Rick Rubin was behind defined the sound of that time, define that texture that we associate with 1990s, early 1990s. So I do listen a lot for production, which thankfully in Plunderphonics you don't have to, because it's all in, garage band or whatever. They're not actually playing instruments. They're just churning it out. So
Well, I think that's a good way to end, unless there is anything else that you
no,
wanted to touch on.
Danzig
Cool.
should have stopped after Danzig 2.
All right. That's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway.
And he's just like the rest of us.
That's right. He still buys kitty litter. Oh, apparently he lives in Lucille Ball's house now too.
Huh.
Which was interesting.
See, I
Very,
Love Lucy.
very on brand. I don't know, but it's very on brand for like a B horror movie guy, right? I was like, really? Could you have been more? Anyway, not shocking. But yeah, so there's that's about Danzig.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Traci.
Yeah, of course.
That's a wrap for this month's episode of Talking Shit About. I hope you enjoyed. These episodes come out the first Friday of each month, and if you liked this episode with Traci, you're in good luck, because she'll be back with another band that's pretty spicy, literally and figuratively. Well, maybe not literally, but sort of. Anywho's will be. If you don't mind, consider giving this show a rating. Not because I want to have my ego fed or necessarily because I want more listeners, but because it's hard for people to find my show when they look for it. So I figure the more ratings, the easier it'll be for people to find it. That's honestly my main agenda here. So please consider doing that. And if you want to contact me to be on the show, suggest a topic, or suggest someone else to be on the show, you can email me at kilizabeth.pod@gmail.com. That's KILLIZABETH.pod@gmail.com. And we will see you next month. Bye.